Hello everyone, I am Mrs Esther Massey. Welcome back to another session of Lesson 1 of the French Revolution.
Today we will study about the social elements responsible for the revolution. The French society was divided into three classes known as estates. The first estate was of the clergy. The second estate was of the nobles. The third estate was of the masses. The society of estate was part of the feudal system that dated back to the Middle Ages. Here, the figure shows how the system of estates in French society was organized. Peasants made up of 90% of the population. However, only a small number of them owned the land they cultivated. About 60% of the land was owned by nobles, the church, and the other rich members of the third estate. Members of the first two estates, that is, the clergy and the nobility, enjoyed certain privileges by birth. The most important of these were exemptions from paying taxes to the state. The nobles further enjoyed feudal privileges. These included feudal dues, which they extracted from the peasants. Peasants were obliged to render service to the lord, to work in his house and fields, to serve in the army, and to participate in building roads. The churches too extracted its share of taxes called tithe from the peasants. And finally, all members of the third estate had to pay taxes to the state. These include a direct tax called tally and a number of indirect taxes which were levied on articles of everyday consumption like salt or tobacco. The burden of financing activity of the state through taxes was borne by the third state only. Now we will look at how the people struggled to survive. The population of France rose from about 23 million in 1715 to 28 million in 1789. This led to a rapid increase in the demand of food grains. Production of grains could not keep pace with the demand. So, the price of bread, which was the staple diet of the majority, rose rapidly. Most workers were employed as laborers in workshop whose owner fixed their wages. But wages did not keep pace with the rise in prices. So the gap between the poor and the rich widened. Things became worse whenever drought or hail reduced the harvest. This led to a subsistence crisis, something that occurred frequently in France during the old regime. Now the diagram given here, it shows the course of a subsistence crisis. A growing middle class envisaged an end to privileges. In the past, peasants and workers had participated in revolt against increasing taxes and food scarcity, but they lacked the means and programs to carry out full scale measures that would bring about a change in the social and economic order. This was left to those groups within the third estate who had become prosperous and had access to education and new ideas. The 18th century witnessed the emergence of social groups termed the middle classes who earned their wealth through an expanding overseas trade and from the manufacturers of goods such as woolen and silk textiles that were either exported or brought by the rich members of society. In addition to merchants and manufacturers, the third estate included professionals such as lawyers or administrative officials. All of these were educated and believed that no group in society should be privileged by birth. Rather, a personal social position must depend on his merit. These ideas, envisaging a society based on freedom and equal laws and opportunities for all, were put forward by philosophers such as John Locke and Jean-Jacques Rousseau. In his two treatises of government, Locke sought to refute the doctrine of the divine and absolute right of the monarch. Rousseau carried the idea forward, proposing a form of government based on a social contract between people and their representatives. In the spirit of laws, Montesquieu proposed a division of power within the government between the legislative, the executive, and the judiciary. This model of government was put into force in the USA after the 13 colonies declared their independence from Britain. The American Constitution and its guarantee of individual rights was an important example for the political thinkers in France. The idea of these philosophers were discussed intensively in salon and coffee houses and spread among people through books and newspapers. These were frequently read aloud in groups for the benefit of those who could not read and write. The news that Louis XVI planned to impose further taxes to be able to meet the expenses of the state generated anger and protest against the system of privileges.
I hope you all have understood this much. We'll continue this lesson in my next video. Thanks for watching.